Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Do you know what it means to be a motherless daughter? Did you know you can have mother loss without mother death? Mother loss comes in many forms, and Motherless Daughters Ministry is here to help you navigate through your particular mother loss. While you are unique, you are definitely not alone. We have 20 years worth of pearls of wisdom to help you on your mother loss journey. And we are sharing all of these pearls with you through this very podcast, Nurturing Words, Voices of Experience, sponsored lovingly by Motherless Daughters Ministry.
Hello, I'm Gladys Bell, your host. Today, we're bringing you an interview that was originally shared as a Facebook Live event coordinated by our podcast administrator, Sarah Lynn Wells. Our founder, Mary Ellen Collins, interviewed a panel of 5 motherless daughters who have attended or facilitated the Motherless Daughters Ministry Journey Retreat. The Journey Retreat is a residential retreat focusing on mother loss and its effect on your life, how her absence shapes your identity, influences your style of mothering and relationships, how your grief surfaces through your lifetime, and how you experience living beyond your mother's final years. The panelists discuss their experiences with the Journey Retreat, including how it felt walking in that first day and how it changed their lives. Perhaps you are someone considering attending the retreat. We hope this might encourage you to take that next step to finding out more information or attending. This event changes lives for the better. You can check our show notes for more information about the retreat and how to register. Let's listen to the interview and learn more about the Journey Retreat.
So we're going to get started, and what I'd like to do is to ask each one of the women that are here to talk to you on our panel just to introduce yourself and where you're from. I'm going to throw something in that just 1, 2 words. What kind of mother loss do you represent? And I would start by saying I'm early loss. My mother was deceased when I was 15. So let's go to Jana. So Jana,
yes.
Take over here.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. I'm Jana. Welcome, everyone. I'm coming to you from a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So shout out to everyone from the Midwest. And I represent actually kind of both elements that the ministry really addresses. So being a daughter of a narcissistic mother and my mother-in-law, who was a very special woman in my life, I lost her to physical death.
Okay. And so your mother is living?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Vanessa, can you go and tell us where you are at and what kind of mother loss you represent?
Hi, Mary Ellen, everyone that's watching. I'm Vanessa, and I'm from Los Angeles, California. And I found Motherless Daughters Ministry just right on my own. I just kind of did a deep dive. I lost my mother to actual death. I actually lost her to the pandemic. So it's been 3.5 years. And shortly after that, I just sort of did a deep dive into how I was going to deal with her absence in the short term and beyond.
Okay. Daniela, could you share, please?
Yes. Thank you, Mary Ellen, and welcome to everyone that's here. My name is Daniela Najoli, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have mother loss due to suicide. When I was very young, my mother completed a suicide and left myself and my 2 older sisters when we lived in Harlem, New York City. So that's a little bit about my mother loss.
All right. Sarah, would you want to share?
Yes, my name is Sarah Lynn Wells, and I am from Bloomington, Indiana, and I lost my mother. She died just a little over 8 years ago.
Gladys.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Welcome to everyone that's here this evening. My name is Gladys Bell. I'm the board vice chair, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I lost my mom 20 years ago, and it was late loss. I was 54 years old by death after a heart surgery.
Okay. Well, thank you all for sharing. And you can see the wide range of mother loss that just this group represents. So I think that's important. that there is a place for you. You're not alone. So I've got a list of questions that I certainly want to ask everyone. And I really don't care about the order that everyone goes, but really, I'm very curious for you to share with the group how you got involved with the Journey Retreat.
I don't mind going first, and it might be appropriate because I first became involved in the Journey Retreat in 2005, and it's about 5 years after its founding. And at the time, it was a 12-week course. I could not return to volunteer until I retired around 2017 or 18. And that's when I came back as a volunteer and attended the Journey Retreat. The entire course had been modified to a 72-hour residential retreat. And I was amazed at how the program had been modified and how awesome I saw transformations happen with the people there. The instructional design had been reworked to fit it into the 72 hours, and all of the information from the 12-week course was redesigned to that program so that you have dedicated time to explore all the things that were included in the course.
Okay. Jana, you want to go next? I'm going to have to just call you as you're on my screen, okay?
Sounds good. Yeah. So about 3-4 years ago, I completed the Daughters of Narcissistic Mother class and the Emotionally Absent Mother class that the ministry offers online. And after completing both of those classes, I got so much out of them that when it became time to sign up for the journey, I decided to go for it and did the Journey Retreat a few years ago in 2022 as a participant.
Okay. Vanessa, you're right in front of me.
Okay. As I started to say a little bit earlier, I kind of just did an online search for other women in my predicament of losing their mom. And I came across you guys, I think on Facebook. And at that time, it was 2022. So it only had been my mother had only been going on 6 months. And the Journey Retreat, that would have been of 2022. I felt it was a little soon. And so I went ahead and gave myself some time, and I went in 2023 and really just to find a way to learn how to, like I said, how to cope with her absence in the long term and start dealing with my own grief and living day to day and going to work and taking care of my family and all the stuff that we still got to carry on and do. And so now it's kind of brought me back again around, and because this is going to be a lifelong thing. So.
Daniela, do you have anything to add to that? How did you get involved in the Journey Retreat?
Yes. Well, how I got involved in the Journey Retreat was, it all started after seeing a table at a women's conference that I had attended in 2019. And it was a table for the Motherless Daughters Ministry. And so I was intrigued by the ministry itself and had grabbed the card and learned of the different courses and also the support groups. And I live on the west side of Cincinnati, and I noticed that at the time, the support groups were in person on the other side of town. So at that point, I didn't see how I would be able to connect logistically because I had kids, but I kept that in my heart. And just by seeing this ministry, someone at a table, just sharing the information was really helpful. That's how I kind of started and came from there.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that? How you got involved with the Journey Retreat?
So I found the ministry through actually the podcast. And at the time I had my youngest was very little. And so I was mainly just involved with the ministry through some volunteering remotely, that sort of thing. But in 2023, I had the opportunity to go to the Journey Retreat. I was going as a volunteer and also doing some podcast episodes and interviews with some of the volunteers. But then while I was there, I also got to be part of participate as well. So it was a great experience.
And I didn't share with you how I got involved with the Journey Retreat. I've been involved with the retreat since 2016, and I am the person who developed the retreat. So I was the human person. There was a lot of spirit-driven stuff that was going on. So I can't take total credit for it. But anyway, I have some specific questions really that and really I want to focus this with Danietta and Vanessa, is what made you interested in what made you interested in attending the retreat?
I'll go first. I think, like I said, I was just searching for a group that I could connect with, who could understand what I was going through. Even to this day, I don't have too many close friends that have either they lost their mom many years ago, or they haven't yet. And so I didn't have anybody really close enough that I could connect with and understand. And so I think I was just looking for a new place, new faces, somebody, trying something new and different. And it was a little scary at the same time, but I was excited to, like I said, deep dive into figuring out how I was going to, handle this.
Okay. Danietta, you have anything to add to that?
I would say of my siblings, I am the only one who had a daughter. So the rest of my sisters, they had boys. And so for me, I had been praying to show me, how to parent my 7-year-old daughter in such a way that I wouldn't inadvertently pass down anything that I was missing from not having a mother raise me, not having my mother raise me. So that was a real big push for me in attending. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they want to contribute with that question? Okay, well then I'm going to go down here and pick on Jana, because Jana, I want to know what it was like for you to walk into that retreat.
Yes. Well, I'll just be totally honest. It was a little daunting, a little scary. Even though I knew, Mary Ellen, I had some interactions with a couple other women from the ministry. I really didn't know many people at all. And, the retreat was a couple states away from me. I had to travel to get there. So I was in a whole new place. So it was quite overwhelming, and I was really uncertain. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had an idea, but, a lot of it was kind of a mystery. So I'm really glad that I, persisted and I showed up despite those concerns and fears that I had. It ended up being a transformative experience that we'll get into more as this time goes on.
And I have to tell a story on Jana. She's on a different time zone and forgot that there was an hour time difference. So not only with that anxiety, she was late. And you know what happens to some of us when we're late? It's like we panic. So she had that layered onto it too. And see, you don't want to tell me anything. I remember all this. Okay. Vanessa, let me ask you what it was like walking in.
Again, I had a little bit of a ways to travel, which was totally fine.
You didn't drive. You didn't drive.
No, I literally, I'd take a plane, and then I did drive at the retreat at that time because I realized it's in a different spot now. I think I had like a 40-minute drive. So I had a little time, to kind of decompress once I got there, and made it right at the beginning of registration. And I was excited. The only nerve-wracking part, like I said, was, I knew it was going to come to the point where I would have to share my mother's story. So that was a little scary. But once I did, it was just a huge relief. And I felt that I picked the right place to be with the right group of people. And it was good.
Okay. Gladys or Sarah, do you have anything that you want to, or Danietta, anything you want to contribute to that?
No, not about walking in. It was coming into the Journey Retreat after having been to the 12-week. It was a refreshing experience because you could see everyone kind of decompress, leaving everything else behind and coming into that space.
And that's important that you mentioned, because you're there and you're there to be taken care of and you're focused, so you don't have all those distractions. Sarah or Danietta, do you have anything to contribute to that question?
For me, I liked the fact that when I walked into the space, it felt like we were all connected on some level from the shared experience or a similar experience. So that part, was significant for me.
Anything from you, Sarah?
I would just say there was a warmth from everyone that was there. I felt very welcomed walking in, felt very inviting because there were people that I had known from volunteering with the ministry, but a lot of new people. And it was the first time I'd met any of them in person. So just very inviting atmosphere is what sticks out to me.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I always want to know, what was the first thing that stood out to you about the retreat? Was there a first thing that stood out to you? So I'd like to hear that if you have any information, any response to that.
I would say one of the first things that stood out to me was when we got to the part where everyone was sharing their story. And I just feel like you could almost feel a shift in the atmosphere as we're all, I think there were a lot of nerves as people are meeting brand new people and, maybe some anxiety about sharing our story. But as people were being open and vulnerable and really listening to each other and we were sharing it, it just felt like this is a very different experience than I've ever had before. So that really stood out to me.
Okay. Anyone else have something they would contribute?
I'm going to try and keep this short.
Yeah, you will. We'll cut you off, Gladys.
What stood out to me immediately was the awesome instructional design of everything that happens at the retreat. For those of you who are new to our ministry, the story of the founding of this ministry can be found in several places. I know it's at the beginning of a first podcast that we had, but to understand the fact that this was founded just by inspiration of God, and it just flooded to me as I experienced the journey retreat that everything that happens there, every exercise, every session is God inspired. And it has to be, because the transformative changes that happen from beginning to end, you can feel the presence of God and his work within this course. To condense 12 weeks of work in 3 days is phenomenal. And I know it has to be God. We know that this ministry is faith-based, and I think that does make a big difference in what we're doing. You can feel God's presence there and his working within the coursework there. Everything is meaningful and it's progressive, so that as you're working in this intentionally safe environment to explore things that enable you to heal from the impact of loss, it's very inspiring. It's amazing.
I want to say something that it just absolutely blows my mind. Remember, I've been working with the retreat since 2016, and this always happens.
Every time.
Women look different when they leave. I wish, and I can't do this, but I wish I could take a picture of people when they come and picture when they leave. There is sometimes such a transformation. I want to say, who's that? Because you don't recognize them. Yeah. But it's because their burdens have been lifted and they're connected. But that happens every year. And that is such a blessing to see. I have goosebumps right now, or whatever they call them, wherever you're at. Anyway, I think that's the blessing. And if there's anybody else that wants to chime in and say anything, please do.
I'll just add, kind of building on what Gladys said, totally agree. What really stood out to me when I came to the journey was the quality of the instruction. No exercise you do is fluff. It's all been very thoughtfully put together and designed, and your time is very well utilized. The quality of the content and the exercises is top tier. I'd also just say what really stood out to me, and Sarah Lynn touched on it when she was mentioning the warmth of the volunteers, but just like how nurturing all of the women were who were volunteering and leading the retreat. You know, as a mother of an emotionally absent narcissistic mom, or as a child of an emotionally absent narcissistic mother, you know, nurturing isn't a thing that I got very often growing up and still don't get. And so to be nurtured by these women who didn't even know me, the love that they had for me, even though they didn't know me, it was wonderful. I can't even fully describe or express it. I was able to experience something I really never got for those 3 days, and I'll never forget it. And yeah, just the nurturing is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have anything they want to say about that? Well, let me go on to the next thought that we had. Can you put your hands around a moment that you said, wow, this is really going to be impactful for me? This is going to make a difference in my life. Can you describe that moment? Can you go there?
Share, because I still have a big notepad from on my door in my office from when I was there. And this is from 2019. It was an exercise we had done. And every time I go into this closet to get something out of it, I look at it and I remember the experiences that I had. That particular experience was a moment for me that was impactful because it helped me to crystallize my thoughts around the time that I lost my mom, but then also what was also happening in my family, like just the things that you walked us through. It was already said about the careful, intentional, psychologically safe environment that we are in and nurturing environment that we're in. So imagine, and even in that space, being able to do something like that, to be able to pull out these things that relate to mother loss. It was just so impactful to me. So I'm grateful that, it's not going away. I will have this on my wall in my door forever. It's, because it was so impactful and it keeps reminding me of it.
Mm-hmm. Vanessa or Sarah, as coming in, when did you know it was going to be impactful for you?
Probably, I can't think of an exact moment, but within the first 24 hours of being there, I knew that I'd picked the right place to come to and be and share my my experience and just open up, which is sometimes not easy to do with people you don't know. But I felt good. I felt good about it just shortly after I arrived.
Okay, great. Anybody else have, Sarah, do you have anything to add to that as walking in when you were a participant, realizing that it was going to be so impactful for you?
I think there are many moments, but one that kind of stands out to me is an exercise we were doing where we were kind of doing some self-reflection and writing. And there were just things that came up for me that I just hadn't taken the time to be still and write and reflect in that way. So that was really impactful for me.
Okay. All right. On a day-to-day basis, most of us don't interact with other motherless daughters. That's not who our circle is that we always interact with. So what was it like being in this room full of motherless daughters?
I think one thing that stood out to me was just we all had very unique stories. We had very different circumstances, but as we listened to everyone's stories, there was threads of commonality between all of the stories and ways that I could connect with people when I don't have very many people that I interact with on a daily basis who could understand and who I could connect to in that way that hadn't gone through the same experiences. So just seeing this room of people, and there were such different stories, but also ways that we really could connect and understand each other was really impactful.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Sarah Lynn. Going into the journey, I was a little worried that, maybe my story was going to be too different from everyone else's and I wasn't going to be able to get as much out of it because of that, but absolutely not the case. Everyone there, no matter their exact experience, was a daughter of mother loss in some capacity, whether physical or emotional or both. And to be with other women, who were sharing their story about that, it was one of the most healing things I've ever experienced. It was like we were all there sharing our stories and carrying each other's load a little bit, like lessening each other's grief load, just incredibly healing.
What I think is fascinating is Gladys and I have a different perspective because we have been facilitators for the retreat. So what I want to tell you, and Gladys, you chime in here too, is you think you're blessed, but you ought to be on this side because the blessings that come to the facilitators are It's like, I didn't expect that. And it's wonderful. It's
Yes.
wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Always blessing. Always blessing. And Gladys, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I have to mirror something that you said earlier. There has never been a time that I have attended the Journey Retreat as a facilitator that I have not seen lives transform. And it touches me every time. It moves me, as the word says, it moves me with compassion because I can see God's hand in every situation. And about meeting people with different backgrounds. The first time I came to the Journey Retreat, I met another volunteer. She's one of my best friends right now, but her story could not be more different than mine. But we immediately forged a friendship there. And there's something about the environment that brings everyone together in a bond. We're going to take a short break to tell you about an opportunity, and then we'll come right back to the podcast.
You have a powerful story to tell, and I want you to know your story will resonate with so many in our listening community. Podcasts provide us with opportunities to connect with others, fostering a sense of personal connection through the power and intimacy of one's voice. They can provide an escape, a touch point with the world outside, and a sense of community, and not just for the listeners. If you would like to be featured as a nurturing voice of experience in one of our upcoming podcasts, please let us know. Visit motherlessdaughtersministry.com today.
I'm interested to know, all of you that have been participants in the retreat, how did your grief journey change as a result of attending the Journey Retreat?
I'll go first. It was actually a little scary to leave. I kind of felt like, okay, now what do I do now? How do I deal with this now without this little group that came together for one weekend? And I think I just realized that this was just a stepping stone, that this was just going to be the beginning for me, and it was going to be a lifelong thing, and that whether I come back to the Journey Retreat or seek out some other avenue, that it was just going to be a lifelong thing. And that's what I'm dealing with now. That's how I'm handling it. Just, day to day, week to week, month to month. There's just a lot of waves, a lot of highs and lows for me.
Mm-hmm. What about the rest of you? How would you address that question? What would you say?
Well, I was going to say, for me, my grief journey, it's similar to what Vanessa said, in that it was the beginning. And it's almost like when you think about graduation, people think it's the end of the educational process, but it's the commencement. That's why they call it that. And for me, it was beginning that journey of, okay, now that I've been equipped with these tools and been wrapped around with these nurturing arms of these facilitators that were just so loving and so informative and gifted, now what? How do I apply this in my everyday life? And it's not that it was a perfect thing once you went through the Journey Retreat, but it was a way for me to be more informed about what I was experiencing, and it gave language to it and all kinds of things. And then it helped me to realize that I wasn't alone in this journey by being with all of these women with shared experiences. So that was a big piece too.
Sarah and Jana?
My grief journey changed in the sense that my grief became less intense. If I had to roughly put numbers or a scale to it, I'd say I walked into the retreat maybe at an 8 or a 9 on the grief scale. And I walked out of there, I don't know, maybe at like a 6. The grief was just significantly lessened. And it was lasting. That's been a lasting experience. The retreat was 3 years ago now. So for me, the grief was greatly less intense, because I was finally able to talk about it. Grief is something I feel like that tends to be on your mind a lot. And it's just something that had been living in my head. And now, for once, there was a dedicated 3-day period to work through it. And when else do you get that? So it's just really helped me tremendously. And, similar to Danietta, my grief went from being an isolating experience to something that I felt like really just I was dealing with, to completely not isolated at all, where I got to really see, this grief that I have is actually somewhat common among women.
Sarah, did you have anything to contribute to that?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what has been said. I think for me, especially losing my mom right when I had my first child, there was a lot of tendency of pushing things down so I could focus on taking care of others or just the busyness of life. So I think there were things that I had done to grieve, but going to this retreat where I was able to just focus on that and reflect and have some quiet, I think it gave me an opportunity to start the grief journey in ways that I hadn't before. So I think having that weekend where I could focus on that really kicked off some things, and I picked up some tools that I could use to keep working through that even after I left.
Mm-hmm. And Gladys, you got ready to say something. I wanted to give it to you.
Well, just for a moment, the flagship workshop that we have is called The Journey. And it's called The Journey for a reason, because we are still on that journey. Mary Ellen made a statement some weeks ago that we are here for you because we are one of you. And all of us that volunteer at the Motherless Daughter Ministry are still on that journey. And we gain tools through the ministry to manage our grief. It's not a destination, it is a journey. And we learn how to manage that better each and every day. My mother has been gone for 20 years, and I still cry about it on occasion. But we gain those tools to enable us to manage. And every time you have an additional loss, that compounds everything. It brings things back to you. And it enabled me to survive probably the most significant loss I will ever experience in my life. It helped me to survive that, not just the tools that I gained here, but the community of support. My daughter died 4.5 years ago. I'll probably never, ever fully get over it. But this community of women surrounded me with support that is indescribable, and it helped me to stand.
I think that's a really important point that Gladys brings up. It is a community. You get connected, just like Vanessa, you can't get away from me. And Jana, you can't get away from me. And Sarah, you're not leaving me either. And Daniela, you got me. But the thing is that in this community, people are there for you if you need them. But there's nobody that will look over your shoulder and interfere with your daily life. But if you need us, we're here. We're here always. So the community is something that's a blessing, I think, that for all of us. I've said this before, and I really mean it, that once you get part of this community, you own a piece of my heart. And there's a lot of pieces out there. So anyway, enough about me. But, I would say to those that have participated in the retreat, what's the biggest takeaway?
There's so many takeaways, it's hard to really narrow that down, but I would say the biggest takeaway for me was that I was not alone. I was not alone. And there are so many other women who share, a shared experience. It may not be the exact same experience, but when we answered a question similar to this earlier, you don't have a lot of people in your life that have this situation or this particular loss. And so to have others around you in the community, that was a big takeaway. And also I felt like I was on this journey of being a daughter of the king, because I know that there is this identity of motherless daughters, right? And with us being a faith-based ministry, it's also so important for me to look at the fact that I'm a daughter of the king and how to wrestle with that and grapple with that in light of being a woman who has lost her mother when I was younger. So yeah, just being surrounded by other women who gathered for this type of self-reflection and bonding and growth experience, and knowing that it's a curve, it's a learning journey that doesn't end. And I heard it said earlier, that's so important, because the journey experience takes into account no matter where you might be on your learning journey of mother loss. So
what about Vanessa? You look like you're getting ready to speak. Are you?
Oh, no, I'm listening.
Okay, Jana, is there something you would add to that, or Sarah? Biggest takeaway?
I would just echo what Daniela was saying about the importance of community and how healing it was to be around other people who were sharing, who were having conversations, or doing these exercises. And so just the importance of that and to continue to move forward in the journey and not have an expectation for yourself like, well, I should be at this point or I should be here, or that you're not going to, it's cyclical. You might have a time where, things are reignited and things are a little harder. So I think just realizing how important it is to not try to do it alone and to have that community, again, that we're on a journey and we don't need to put expectations on ourselves of where we need to be on that journey.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to contribute around that takeaway? Okay, let me go ahead and move on because now I think that I want to ask you about your experience. Wait a minute. I had a takeaway. That one of the things that I wrestle with, of course, is to get it organized and get everything going and stuff like this. And one year, I mean, we hit every obstacle in the world. And I kept working with it. I mean, and we had one woman who wanted to come from Texas, but they rerouted her plane so she would have got there after the retreat. And, all these different things. So I'm praying about what do we do? What do we do? And I heard this loud and clear. Well, I'm coming. Are you? And that was from God. I thought, well, if he's going to be there, I better show up. I better show up. And it was a phenomenal retreat. So I just had to add that in. So my question is, from your recommendation and what you've seen, who would you recommend? Who do you think would benefit from attending this retreat?
That is an excellent question, Mary Ellen. I feel that the Journey Retreat is for any woman who have missed or lost the nurturing love and care of a mother. And many of us think of loss, as in my case, through death, and others on the panel as well. But there are lots of women who have missed the nurturing love and care of their mother through emotional absence or narcissism. They may have also had mothers who have been incarcerated during their formidable years, or who have experienced chronic sickness and illness and even other kinds of mental health issues. So there's such a broad umbrella of women who could come to this retreat and really benefit from it.
Okay. Anyone else have any words to contribute to that? Who would you think would benefit from coming to the retreat?
Mary Ellen, I just wanted to bring up that, we have a target audience of women who have experienced mother loss, but we have had so many people connect with us who are, I think you used the term secondary beneficiaries of the program. We have men who follow our Facebook page and support the ministry. We have people of every age and classification that visit our website. It's phenomenal the amount of information you can gather about who visits the website. But a couple of the segments of population that we may not target that benefit are the young women under 18 who are motherless. Our target audience is not minors, and there are some changes that would have to be made in order to do that. But there is a population of younger women, girls, who have experienced mother loss. Many of us attending the program lost their mothers when they were children. So there is a secondary population of age-related and men whose wives are motherless, men who are parenting daughters who are motherless and don't have a clue how to help them. So, there are many people that can benefit.
One of the things that I was going to tell you that really was interesting, that when we launched the program, the course on the emotionally absent mother, the first person to register was a male, and he was just delighted he found something. So mother loss affects all genders, all ages, and everything. We just have to limit what we do, and it's liability issues that we have to focus on, and we'll get over that one of these days. It takes resources. It takes a lot of resources that we don't have available at this time, but we will at some time. We will at some time. I have a really poignant question, and I really want to focus and ask Jana this. That one of the things I want to ask you is, what kind of impact on relationships from attending the, how did you relate? What was the impact on your relationship?
So positive. When I was pre-journey retreat, I was frankly dragged down by a lot of pain. And through the retreat and other, offerings from the ministry, I've been able to lessen that pain load. And when I'm not in such pain, I have more joy, and I'm able to give more time, love, and attention to relationships that mean a lot to me. It's like the one with my husband. I've since had kids since attending the journey retreat. And, I firmly believe that I'm able to be a better mother to them because I've worked through a lot of the pain and from my mother loss. Just invaluable. I mean, what a gift to be able to give to my kids and my husband, to be able to just show up, more present, more full, more energetic. So it's been so wonderful.
Okay. What about Vanessa or Sarah or Daniela? Would you have anything to add to that? How were your relationships impacted?
I think my family just understanding that I need to work through this in my own way, in my own time. And if that means, because now I've sort of taken on a lot of the little traditions and things that my mother's being an only daughter, because I have two brothers, I've taken over that to a fault almost, the holiday traditions and everything. And I'm realizing in the process, okay, I don't have to have everything perfect. I don't have to do everything exactly like mom did. I can still have a piece of me in there and a little bit of my mom. And I know that they recognize that I'm trying to fill a void, and I have to teach myself to step back once in a while and not take on so much. So I just think that we've all, as a family, my father, my brothers, we're all dealing with it differently. And I think for me, it was so much more delayed, and I'm feeling it more in the last year or two than I did even, of course, when it first happened. So.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add?
I'll just mention, Mary Ellen, that at the time when I first became involved in Motherless Daughters Ministry, I was still working. I'm now retired, but I've worked my entire career in community and social service. And it opened up a whole nother area of understanding of the people that I work with. I saw more, and I have to say I was quite naive about mother-daughter relationships. I thought everybody had a great mom, like I did. But it opened my eyes to some things and helped me to understand the people that I was working with.
Okay. Sarah or Daniela, anything to add?
I would just say my relationship with my daughter improved a lot, because I had gone into the journey retreat with that desire to want to improve that relationship and just want to be more sensitive to what she would need. And so I feel like that has really enhanced that relationship, as well as with my son and with my husband too. But it was just really, that relationship that I was trying to focus on. And I could tell that there was a difference, since going to the journey retreat.
Sarah, anything from you?
I think maybe the only other thing would be before that, in some of my relationships, it was with people who didn't necessarily understand because they haven't been through that, and they wanted to be there for me, but didn't really understand how. And having that community, like we've talked about a few times, is so important because it was able to kind of fill that need that I was having. And I'm not expecting that from others who maybe aren't understanding. So that community part of it helps with other relationships too, because there's less pressure for them to fill that void that you're needing.
Okay. Well, I realize that it's almost time for us to wrap up, but I want to make sure and say a few things. So one of the things I want to make sure and say, the Journey Retreat is June 6th through the 9th. Registration opens on April 6th. And there is a significant 1 week, there'll be early bird pricing. And that early bird pricing will be limited to the first 10 people who register. And the attendance, which includes your room, which has your own private ensuite in a facility that is absolutely amazingly beautiful. It has 88 acres to it. It's gorgeous. And that and all your meals, and they're good cooks. They're good meals. Okay, so early bird pricing is $571.40, and that's limited to the first 10. And then it gets into regular registration, and that's open from April 15th to May 15th, and that's $671.40, so that goes up $100. But then late registration is 16th to the 22nd, and that is $871.40. And registration closes on 5/23. So those are the dates. Well, as we close, I have one last question for the panel. Is there anything that you would say to the people who are listening to this that are considering the retreat? What is it that you would say to them?
I would challenge them, if you're afraid or nervous that you're going to be uncomfortable or that it's going to be hard, just try to lean into that as much as you can and just bet on yourself, take a leap of faith, just go for it. This retreat, you're going to get something out of it. Your life will probably be changed for the better. I'd really encourage you to consider signing up.
Okay. Anyone else have words for the listener?
I agree with what Jana said. I mean, there's no bad thing that can come of this. You'll come out of it feeling better, have a different perspective, have maybe a lightened load. Just go for it. Wherever you're from, however you can make it happen, just do it. Highly recommend it.
Okay. Sarah or Daniela or Gladys, what would you say?
Be prayerful about your decision and just be open to the challenge. This is a big change. I mean, all of us stepped out of our comfort zone, to be a part of the Journey Retreat, those that participated, and it was the best thing. I mean, it's lifelong, it's lasting, and, it'll have an impact on you.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, do you have anything you'd say?
I'd say, I know there can be so many things. Life can be busy. There can be so many reasons to put something off or to think that you just don't have the time for something. But I think there's so much benefit that's going to help you, like we've said, in other relationships, in your life, in your journey, finding community. There's just so much value to it. It's important to sometimes just take that time. It can really make a big difference in your life.
Gladys, what would you say?
Well, lastly, I would just like to say that in one of our journey retreats, several people said, I have finally found my tribe. This is a place where you can belong. And as I'm fond of saying many times when I've shared anything, you're not alone. You'll never be alone again.
I don't think I have anything to say after that. So thank you all for participating, for listening. Thank you so much for listening to us today.
Thank you for joining us here at Motherless Daughters Ministry today. Find more episodes of Nurturing Words, registration information for the next Journey Retreat, and more on our website at www.motherlessdaughtersministry.com. We're here for you because we are one of you. Remember, you are not alone.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.